today we're talking about the present perfect tense, and this is part 4 of our series about this present perfect tense. So far, we have seen an introduction to this tense. We have seen looking at it compared to the past simple tense, and we've looked at some words like still, yet, and already in the present perfect. Today, we're going to continue that conversation, and we're going to add and build on top of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get started. Let's see here. There we go. Bear with me on all the technical things today, please. So the topic that we're starting with today is about the idea of a pen pal. Now, if you know what a pen pal is, then that's fantastic. Maybe some of you have had one. I know that when I was a child, I had I had pen pals through school. We used to write to people all around the world. So a pen pal, it says here, a pen pal is, or pen pals are strangers who regularly write to each other. And their relationship consists solely of letters, text messages, and emails. So they're only writing to each other. They have never actually met each other in person. They only write. So they write to each other, maybe formal letters or actual letters. Maybe they just send text messages or use a service, or maybe they send emails. There's all sorts of different ways to have a pen pal. So my first question to you that I want to pose, and you can answer in the chat when you have a chance, is this: why do people have pen pals? What's the value of having a pen pal? Like, why would you do it? I know that I had one when I was younger. So when I was a kid and I was in school, we had a program where we had pen pals. I think I had one in Australia. I think it was. I had a pen pal that I would write a letter to, and then I would receive letters from them in their school. So why do we do this? What's the point? What's the reason for having a pen pal? What is the value in doing this? Right? Maybe you can think of this from the perspective of an English learner, right? If you're practicing English, then maybe you can think of a reason to have a pen pal. I don't know. Or just in general, if you're a child or if you're, I don't know, a person in your country, what's the value of talking or sending messages to somebody in another country? Something to think about. If you have the answer, then write it into our chat and we'll see. And so for now, let's continue. We're going to look at an example of a message that a pen pal may send to somebody. Right, so we're going to look at that now. Here, so we said that pen pals can be through text messages, they can be through formal letters, or they can be through email. We're going to look today at a text message because we're looking at kind of a bit more informal English today. And we're looking at this expression here, which is, what have you been up to? What have you been up to? It's a very common question in English, a very, very common question in English. What have you been up to? And it means, what have you been doing? What have you been doing lately, right? In the past few weeks or in the past few days, what's new with you? What have you been up to? What have you been doing? Right? That's what this question is. Right? Victoria, excellent. It's good to see you here. I know we've seen you before. Excellent, fantastic. It says Victoria says needed communication, right? So that's a good reason. The human is a social being. I like that expression there, right? The human is a social being, and that's why we may want to have pen pals. We want to reach out and talk to people. Fantastic. I love it. Yeah, that's a great reason. Absolutely. All right, so we're going to look at this question here. What have you been up to? All right, I like this question. It's a very common one, and it's a bit informal, asking what you've been doing lately. And we're going to look at an example answer, and we'll use this to kind of begin looking at our topic for today. So here's our example answer. It says this. It says, I've been working a lot for a few weeks. I've also been watching a new show lately, which I'm totally hooked on. Now, if you don't know this expression, hooked, or to be hooked on something, it means to be addicted. Addicted is that expression. To be hooked on something is to be addicted to something. Right? So I'm sure we've all experienced this, where you watch a new TV show, a new series, and you get totally hooked. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you. Or maybe a book. Right? It says, I've also been watching a new show lately, which I'm totally hooked on. What about you? All right, so this is a great answer to our question, what have you been up to? And we're using the structure that I want to talk about today, which is this right here. It's called the present perfect continuous tense. The present perfect continuous tense. So we can see an example of that here. We can see an example of that here where it says, I've been working a lot for a few weeks. I have been working a lot for a few weeks. And this is our structure for today. Now, we break this down. In our last couple of videos, we've seen the present perfect simple tense, which looked like this. If we remember, it was have or has plus the participle form, right? The participle, we also called this the third form, which just meant that if we have a word like go, where we see go, went, and gone, we're going to choose this form here, the third form. Right, so that's what we covered in our last couple of videos. If you haven't seen those, then go back and you can watch them and review. But today we're moving on to looking at the present perfect progressive tense, right? Which is a little bit different, and it looks like this. We have or has, right? Just like this, just like before, have or has, plus been, which you notice is the third form of to be. Right, and then we're going to use this ing form, the present participle, the ing form here. So it looks like this in a regular sentence. It looks like this: I've been working a lot for the past few weeks, for a few weeks. Right, I've been working. Now, I would love if anybody can type into the chat bar here, to the chats of this video, and tell me, why do we use the present perfect progressive, right? The present perfect progressive, also called the present perfect continuous, right? So what's the purpose? Why do we use the present perfect continuous or the present perfect progressive? How is it different from the one that we've looked at in the last few videos, the present perfect simple? So let's say present perfect simple. So we're looking at how these tenses or how these forms are different. All right, that's the answer I want to get from somebody. But for now, we're going to come in here and I want to try to answer this question: what have you been up to? With some different answers, right? So here we saw that I've been working a lot, and that's a fantastic answer. But I want to see some other ones. So we have some pictures here, and we can try to give a present perfect continuous or present perfect progressive answer to this question: what have you been up to? Using these pictures here. Victoria says, talking about process. Yeah, we can talk about processes. We can talk about processes using the present perfect continuous. We can. That's true. The real use of it, just because I'm going to go ahead and tell you the answer. The real use of it, we use the present perfect progressive when something starts in the past, and continues into the present, right? So something starts in the past and it continues into the present. Now, this is not the only use of this tense. There are other uses, but this is the main one here. This is the biggest one. Something starts in the past and continues into the present. In our sentence here, it says, I've been working a lot for a few weeks. He started working a few weeks ago, and he continues, or I continue working a lot now. So it started in the past, and it continues into the present. That's the most common use of this present perfect progressive. All right, so we need to try to get some sentences based on these pictures here. So if you're watching, type into the chat bar. If you're watching later on, type it in the comments and let me see your answers. What answers can we give based on the pictures here? Okay, I'm going to give you a moment to think about it. I'll give you a moment to write into the chat, and then I'm just going to give us a couple answers, and you can check your answers against mine. So if you don't want to write into the chat, that's okay. You can just check your answers against mine. Okay, so let's see. If you want to, go ahead and put something in the chat now. But let's see. Let's take a look. Let's look at the first person here. Let's look at the first person here. So we have some verbs that we can use to describe what's happening here. We can say this person. We can say the verbs to run. We could use the word to exercise. There's a nice phrasal verb we can use. We can say to work out. Nice word there. Victoria, excellent. I see a fantastic word there. It says she's been jogging. So we have the verb to jog. Very nice. To jog, which is kind of that running, but at a slow pace for a long time, right? Not running, not the opposite, which would be to sprint. So the opposite would be to sprint. That's where you run really fast for a short time. But this person, so we could say, yeah, absolutely. We could say, I have, or we'll say she has. She has been jogging. Excellent. She has been jogging. Very good. She has been jogging. Excellent. We see the second one here. Very nice. We have this one here. Our second person, so we have our guy, he has a guitar. Remember that the verb is to play the guitar. I hear lots of people, especially in Spanish-speaking countries, they tell me to touch the guitar because that's the translation. But no, we're going to say to play the guitar. So we'll say he, and we're going to contract this one. We're going to make this one a little shorter. So we'll say he's been, and again, very nice, the ing form, he's been playing the guitar. The guitar. Very nice. And finally, we have our last one here. We have our girl reading a book. And I like this word here, reading a thriller. Absolutely, right? So reading a book, a very interesting book that keeps you on the edge of your seat. We can say she's been reading a thriller. She's been reading a thriller. An exciting book. Fantastic. All right, I love it. So we have someone here who has been jogging, our gentleman has been playing the guitar, and our girl has been reading a book. More specifically, she's been reading a thriller. All right. Good. So now I want to look at another use of this tense, of this present perfect continuous or present perfect progressive tense, and that is to answer the question, how long? Right, so we can answer the question, how long have you been doing something, by using this structure. Right, when we talk about the duration of time, this is a really common structure here. And so we see two examples here. It says, for example, I've been working a lot for a few weeks. We saw that in our example before, in our text from our pen pal. And we see this other one here that says, I've been working a lot since January. Well, now it's February. I've been working a lot since January. And I see these two expressions confused a lot. From lots of the English learners that I work with, they often confuse these words for and since. And I want to clear it up now. I want to clear up how we use for and how we use since, and make sure that you never make a mistake ever again. So we can look at this and we can say that with for, we want to use it for amounts of time, for a duration of time. Okay, an example here is to say a few weeks. There's our duration of time. So if we have an expression like a few weeks, then we know that we need to use the word for. And with since, we're going to use it for a point in time. So a time in the past, something that started in the past and continued till now. And so if we see something like January, then we know that we need to use the word since. Right. Another way to look at this is to look at it, we can see it on a timeline here. Right, so we have a timeline. Imagine that here's now, right? Hopefully you can see all of this. Here's now. Here's January, right? The point in the past, January. And here's the time in between. Well, our action, we started work. So we started working here, started working, right? And we continued until now. So we can focus our attention on the amount of time, right? And there we would use the word for. Or we could focus on this point here. We could focus on the point in time, the point, and then we're going to use the word since. Right? So we have both of these options to use anytime we talk about the duration of time for something. Okay, that's enough of that. If you have any questions, once again, please, if you have questions, please post them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer. If anything is confusing, if you have any questions about this, please post them into the chat, and I'm happy to help. All right. But for now, let's try to make sure that we understand this. So our job now is to use either the word for or the word since to fill in the gaps of our sentences. Okay. So once again, we need to decide if it is a duration of time or if it is a point in time. And it's not always very, very clear. It's not always quite as obvious as just saying January. That's clearly a point in time. So your job now is to try to tell me if we use for or since in these sentences. Okay, so the first one, I'll give you a moment. I'll give you a second to fill in the gaps or to give me the answers, and then I'm going to give you the answers. All right. So if you have it now, if you're here live, then go ahead and put it in the chat. Otherwise, you can just think about it and check your answers with me. All right. So you have 1 second to do this. All right. Okay, so if you're just watching along or if you just want to see the answers or check your answers, then go ahead and watch it with me now. I'm going to fill in the gaps and talk to you about what I see as I go. All right, I'm seeing some answers coming in. It looks like we have some pretty good ones. All right, I see some pretty good answers here. Number one, it says he's been learning the guitar blank a few weeks now. Well, we've already seen this expression, a few weeks. We already saw that one. So we know that, of course, this one is going to be for. Absolutely. Very nice. All right. I see Monica has said exactly that. Number one, she said for, and also gave us the rest of the answers. Very nice, Monica. Congratulations. And welcome to the class. I'm not sure that that we've seen you here before, so welcome. Number two, here we go. They've been running in the park, or we could also use that word jogging like we saw before. Jogging is a good synonym for running. So they've been running in the park every morning. Blank, the weather warmed up. All right, so here we don't have a clear point in time, or we don't have like a date or something to make it very obvious. But we do know that the weather warmed up. If we use the past tense there, then we know we have a point, and we're going to say since. Congratulations, Monica and Victoria. Both of you got that one right. The next one here, it says, I've been working overtime, meaning extra time, extra time. Anytime you see this prefix over, you know that you can think in your mind, you can think extra, over, extra. So I've been working overtime. Exactly right. Very nice. From both Victoria and from Monica. Very nice. And we say since for this one. Very good. Since. And finally, we have a negative, but the rules still apply for the negative. No problem at all. It says she hasn't been going to class for about 3 weeks. So once again, we have 3 weeks. This is a duration of time or a period of time. So we need to use for. Excellent. All right, very good. So that's for and since in this tense. Now, the last thing I want to focus on for this is looking at it one more time, but not focusing on this one here where it says I've been working a lot, but focusing on this one where it says I've been watching a new show lately. And I want to focus on this word here, lately, because that's an important one. If you're ever talking to someone and you get this question, what have you been up to? This word, well, lately, is very important. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Yes, all right. This word is very important. So we can see this word, if we see I've been watching a new show lately, right, lately, or we also can see recently, or we can also say in the past few days, or weeks. Right? We can always add these kind of adverbial phrases here. Then we're just saying in the recent past, right? So in the past days, weeks, hours, months, whatever period of time that you consider to be short, right? So we need to use these words, lately and recently. Get comfortable with these words when we use the present perfect tense. Right, so we can use them to mean in the recent past, and they're excellent for this. So my last question for you before we finish, we're keeping it quite short today, is what have you been up to lately? So I want you to answer this question just as if you're writing to a pen pal or as if you're writing to a friend or someone you are catching up with. I want you to answer this question using our structure from today. So what have you been up to lately? So go ahead and type that into the chat, and I want to see what you have been up to lately. I'm going to share my answer with you in just a moment, but I'll give you a moment to write it into the chat. This is a really good, as you're writing, this is a really good example of small talk. Small talk, which small talk is kind of that sometimes uncomfortable, but just general conversations to pass the time with somebody, or just to you're in the same area as somebody, and so you feel like you need to talk. This is a great question to ask, right? What have you been up to lately, or what have you been doing lately? These are excellent questions that you can use. I have lots of students who tell me that they struggle with small talk. They get into really uncomfortable situations and they don't know what to say to somebody. And I always recommend that you have a couple questions like this, like what have you been up to lately, or what have you been reading lately, or what have you been doing lately, that you can ask in those uncomfortable small talk situations. Right? So having a question like this ready, and also an answer in your mind ready to go, is a really, really good strategy for speaking English, right? When you don't know what to say. All right, let's see here. So Monica says, I have been learning a lot lately. Excellent. I love it, right? I have been learning. Excellent. I have been, sorry for my handwriting here. It's not very easy to write on this thing. I thought it would be much easier. I have been learning. Excellent. Monica, I'm curious what you have been learning. So maybe something in school or university, or English or languages in general. I'm curious what you've been learning. And then we have Victoria. Victoria has said this. I've been writing a preface to Frere's book, but I wrote everything wrong. Okay. Preface should be written as if it were Frere, and I wrote my analysis of Frere's book. All right, excellent. So you've been writing a lot. Very nice. Very nice. I have been writing a lot lately. We'll say this. A lot lately. Yes, exactly right. We need to say lately there. Very good. I like that. I have been writing a lot lately, and you've gotten very specific about that as well, right? So I've been writing lately. Very good. Very good. I like that. One thing to remember when we're using this structure here, this present perfect progressive, notice that we have lots of words here, right? We have, instead of just saying the word write, we have the words I have been writing, right? We have 3 words used to express one word. Right? So it makes our sentences become very, very long when we do it. And so to combat this, to fix this, or to make this a little bit better, we like to contract these. It's very important that you get comfortable contracting these sentences in English. So instead of saying I have been learning, it's much better, it's much nicer, much more, I guess, natural for us to say I've been learning. Right here again, I've been learning, or I've been writing. We like to say for he or she, we would say he's been playing the guitar, for example. She's been, or they've been. Right. This is really the more common way to say it. You very rarely hear somebody say I have been. It's just too clunky. It's too much. Let's see. Monica tells us that she's been learning coding, Zooming. I'm not sure what Zooming is. Maybe using Zoom. I don't know. Yoga, painting. Wow, everything you could find. Fantastic. Monica, all right. So you've been learning a lot lately. That's great. Great. All right. So very good. This is what you've been up to lately. Fantastic. I like it. So just very quickly to review, that's our present perfect progressive tense. Remember that we use the present perfect progressive to talk about things that begin in the past and continue into the present. We can use the words for and since. We use for if we are focusing on the amount of time or the duration of time, and we use since if we're focusing on the beginning point in time. And when we're answering this question, what have you been up to? Generally, we like to use the words lately or recently. And lately is probably the best one. In my opinion, lately is the best one. That's what I use the most, at least. But we can use that to say that we've been doing something in the past few days, weeks, months, just whatever short period of time. Whatever period of time expresses that it's a short amount of time. Right? So we have those. All right. Excellent. If you have any questions, I'm going to be here for another minute or so. If you have any questions about this, post it into the chat bar here, and I'm happy to respond. If not, then we'll go ahead and say that class is dismissed. This class is over. We have covered the present perfect tense in in just about every way. If you haven't seen the other videos in this series, they are in the links below this video. You can watch them there. You can go back and review. This was, once again, part 4 of this series, and this is the last part. So in the future, we're going to move on to new topics. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, we'll be finished. Victoria says, thank you for the lesson. Victoria, you're absolutely welcome. And it's good to see you back. I know that you were coming to a lot of my classes over the summer and earlier in the year. So it's good to see you here again. Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Excellent, everybody. Thank you all for coming. If you have any questions in the future about this topic, just put them in a comment to this video, and I'll be happy to respond. All right. Excellent. Bye, everyone.